All right, Brother Robbie. Yeah, greetings and blessed love, St. Lucia, my family, Rastafari love to all, and welcome to the Justice and Healing program right here on Calabash TV. Today, September 26th, we are giving thanks for life and strength, giving thanks to the Creator for all good things that have happened to us, will happen to us. And for those things that have been negative in our framing, in our lives, we say it all works together for I and I good. What a beautiful segue. And this evening I'm going to be joined by someone who I love very dearly, who I've been working with in the vineyard of goodness, and who played a pivotal role in our summer institute at the Ubuntu Rastafari Cultural Center and the Mount Kailash Rejuvenation Center. He's none other than my beloved brother, Dr. Professor Robbie Shilliam of the John Hopkins University. Brother Robbie, blessed love, my brother. And
yes, I.
blessed my brother.
Yeah, it's good. It's all good. It's all working together, Russell.
It's working together for good. Yes, my brother. So, what I want to do this evening is to have that kind of conversation that allows for us to continue the unpacking of the events that took place in St. Lucia for the summer camp, to share with those members of the family who may have missed the events, missed the optics and the feel and the energy and the presentations that were so well done and well received by our family. And also have you elaborate on those areas that you managed so very well, my brother, including the students you brought in and staff, along with yourself from John Hopkins and the School of Sacrament Rastafari University. So, Brother Robbie, block us on first and just express your own greeting to the St. Lucia family as I pull up our share screen.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, blessed love to the family in St. Lucia. I'm missing them already, man, and it hasn't been that long. But yes, it was very good vibes. And I think one of the abiding things that we took away from it, the students as well as I, and Sister Kalia second night, Amen, who was one of the instructors. I think what we took away from it was something which comes back time and time again, which is that seemingly small places with seemingly little people do tremendous, incredible things. And I think the students were somewhat unprepared for the level of activities, the projects and the depth of the projects that were going on, and the commitments of the projects to justice and healing and all judgment and heaping. So yes, Russ Wayne, that was one of the big things that I think they all took away. They come to a small island thinking that they were gonna hang around for a couple of days in a hammock. And they didn't realize that they were going to have that they were going to learn something very, very deep about the human condition, and about I&I program. So they come back and we had a little kind of debrief, and the I was there and some other ones back in Baltimore, and they still remember the commitments to natural living, the commitments to justice for oneself and for one's community, and they remember the ways in which people just come together and just come forward with some really salient and deep understandings of the human condition and how I get over these colonial legacies. Yes, sir.
You touch on colonial legacy just as you're gonna see, that's a very provocative issue. But before we even get into or even try to touch on that, you, my beloved brother, you came into St. Lucia. Was that your first time into St. Lucia?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
speak to St. Lucians and the rest of our community about that
Mm-hmm.
experience for you as a Rastaman, also
Mm-hmm.
professional in the varied spaces that you have taught and that you have led and shared.
Mm-hmm.
This experience impacts you and just the overarching theme of justice,
Yes, sir.
healing, and the removal of obstacles to those
Mm.
initiatives of justice and healing.
Yes, sir. So I'd make a comparison, which might sound a bit strange to begin with, but I'd make a comparison between St. Lucia and New Zealand. So I was in New Zealand for about 5 years, and I taught there. And this was about, well, when was it now? 2007 to 2011.
Hmm.
And whilst I was there, I grounded with some of the indigenous people called Maori people there, and the Pacifica people, and especially the ones who were Rastafari and the ones who had picked up some of the kind of Black Power energies, decolonizing energies from the African diaspora, and were putting it together in their own way. And one of the things that one will take out of the indigenous peoples there is the way in which they organize themselves so that they are tight knit and strong in holding their space, um, even if the whole of the country got colonized, right?
Hmm.
They have an incredible collective memory, um, in which they can pinpoint any one person in the whole drama of hundreds of years. Um, they have a record of struggling for land, for language, for governance rights. Um, and very few places in the world have I ever come away from such a feeling of um, strength united against a injustice which surrounds them, right? And that's one of the feelings I got in St. Lucia.
Wow.
It really is, no, serious. And sometimes, the small islands do that. Do you get what I mean? Because you got a density of interconnection, which makes things a little bit more possible than bigger places,
Hmm.
right? Where centers of power are not quite so far removed
Hmm.
from the poor people, where it is, say, in like the US, right? I mean, it's just a gulf, right?
Hmm.
So that's what I came away with. But I also came away with the unity, right? It's with the unity of the Rastafari community, and the way in which, even if ones and ones are pursuing different projects, they're all interconnected in some way, and there's a good faith in supporting ones and ones projects. So, in the Mount Kailash situation, there's a very strong sense of grounding in the nature, um, of pursuing a whole array of human activities, from ISIS to production to tourism, even, right? And I think that's really quite special, that I and I stretch ourselves from, and deal with all elements of self-determination, from the aritical to the practical. So that's one really strong thing I took away from there. We a couple of times we came to Dennery, and we honoured Petronil there. Um, and again, I've got a sense of the community coming together, even if there are troubles, um, and honouring a historical legacy with a view to rectifying wrongs in the present. And that even extended to the meetings with the Prime Minister. Like it's rare to see a person in that kind of position of power, in that kind of office, actually, giving a damn. Really, You know what I mean? And the willingness to reason personally and interpersonally with I and I. You know, I mean, I wouldn't want to be too romantic about it all because I know each place. The more you sit in the place, the more you see all the challenges. So I overs that. But still, I'm saying from a real global perspective, there's some really special energies in Saint Lucia. That's for sure. For sure.
Give thanks, my
Mm,
beloved brother. That is perspective.
mm,
Professor Robbie Shilliam, political science, John Hopkins University. You spoke not just in terms of the sociology and the history, but also the
mm,
politics and the optics of the politics. I want to give a big shout out then to our beloved Empress Danny James, our beloved Empress Ethiopia, and of course, Honorable Priest Kailash for the roles they play
mm,
in ensuring that not only were the accommodations there, the plan and the facilitation, but certainly the knocking on the doors and the creating of access points so that we could have a fulsome experience. And the students you spoke of, who are still part and parcel. In fact, I remember them saying they're returning to St. Lucia next year, expecting a part two, and that might be breaking news on one of these programs, right? But certainly, we want to give thanks for all those who played a role, the Nyabingi family and its leadership, Mungo Wisely and, you know, Pa Jacques and Mama Lavi and others who stand prominent in the community, having testimonies, Black Prince and others who speak to, you know, that connection, that standing on your sovereign right, and certainly lasting, meaning enduring to the point where they know can stand as victors. So we give thanks for that perspective, Honorable Brother Dr. Robbie Shilliam. But, you know, there are other things what I wanted to do, as I said earlier, is to share some perspective on what took place. And I pray that the technology assist in this endeavor, because I want you to, having some sharing done, perhaps to enlighten ones on some of the things that are being shared. And here we go, my brother. I first will go to the School of Sacrament Rastafari University and share. So these are webinars that the university has been responsible for, the SOSACRO, the School of Sacrament Rastafari University. This shouldn't have been my first slide, but it came up, Brother Robbie. So we did an Amy Jake and Amy Ashwood Garvey tribute representing a justice and healing model where for many, many decades, we consistently speak of the tremendous work of the Right Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, and you know what he represents across the world, both the Black world, just the world in general. I mean, everyone, regardless of color, nationality, or religion, speaks of the Right Honorable Marcus Garvey. But we
I have it up. Press Wayne.
Yeah.
I have it up on my browser if the eye wants me to share it.
Let me see if I
you're
can.
good. Okay.
Can you see it on this?
No.
Okay, so you can. Well, you know, why not laugh over this? I'll ask our beloved producer to assist in giving you sharing privileges. Yes, but I am aware that our audience can see it, but we did a tribute to honor the 135th anniversary since the birth of the Right Honorable Marcus Garvey. And the way we did that tribute was to include by calling and reviewing the names and the work of the two wives that Honorable Marcus Garvey had in his very complete life. Yes, and the role they played in the Garvey movement and ensuring that we have the legacy of Marcus Garvey. So if you have the privilege, you could view and talk, but if not, just in brief, what you have as knowledge on Amy Ashwood, I'll say Honorable Amy Ashwood and Honorable Amy J. Garvey. Just in brief, what was that in the theming of justice and healing? How important was that?
Mm. So I think both Amy Jakes and Amy Ashwood in different ways, they speak to the importance of archiving and transmitting, right? Amy Jakes, we know, famously held a lot of Honorable Marcus's writings and life story and lectures. And we know that she was a fundamental nodal point in the Pan-African movements that followed Marcus Messiah. And we know that Amy Ashwood was a real traveler. I mean, she had big African continental connections. She traveled around the Caribbean. She lived in Europe, in the UK. She lived in the US. So she was in her own way as well, a real bringer together, a networker. So I think both of them give us is this idea that when we do the works have got to sustain, and we need ones and ones all the time who are sustaining the works, spreading the works, archiving the works, sharing the works, so that they have another life and another life and another life. So yes, Raswain, I think they're really important ones, because we wouldn't know many of Honourable Marcus's words if it wasn't for the two Amy's.
Truly,
Yes,
truly,
sir.
Brother Robbie, and give
Mm,
thanks for that. And perspective is critical, because although some scholars have challenged Amy Ashwood's work
mm,
uh, based on her own writing and other scholarship, she is a founding member of the UNIA. She was the voice of the UNIA on many occasions when
yeah.
Right Honorable could not travel. She introduced the Right Honorable Marcus Garvey to the upper crust of Jamaica, or the
Hmm.
strong middle class who helped to fund the
Hmm.
UNIA in its inception. So
Mm,
that won't be deliberated much, but I'm thankful that you brought that perspective in terms of the continuum of work
mm,
and how we must ensure that the right ones are with us to ensure that documentation is taking place, so that we don't have the pitfalls of the past in the present. So we share knowledge
mm,
and improve ourselves. So it's important. We also had, just for the record, and if you're not looking at your own document, the Repairing African Legacies. Now, that was something we
mm,
unpacked also in the Justice and Healing Initiative, where we looked at not just artifacts, things that were looted from Africa, but we also talked about the people who were taken as a important component of the restoration and the repairing of the breach in the human family. And perhaps, my good brother, you could have some comments on that as we move across the program.
mm. Yes, John. I mean, I think what's interesting about that. So one of the webinars we did featured a very beloved Rastafari elder from the UK called Seymour McLean, known colloquially as the Book Liberator. Um, because once Russ Seymour had heard about the Magdala campaign, which in the 1860s, Russ Wayne, yeah, Magdala? Um,
1868, yeah.
yes, good,
The
thanks.
70s, yeah.
Right. The British sent an expedition, looted, pillaged, raped, killed, and brought back all these not just holy artifacts like taboo, but a lot of books and people, especially young boys. And uh, Seymour McLean, when he heard about this, he actually used it. He wanted to use it as leverage to get world attention on the Ethiopia famine at the time.
Yeah.
So went around the place, liberating books in quotes. Babylon would say he was stealing them,
Yeah.
and he left a trail for the police to come and get him, because he wanted the publicity for the court case to shed light on how Europe has to provide reparation for Ethiopia and within the conditions of the Ethiopian famine. But then the police were too slow. They couldn't figure it out, even though he left them. And so it took a year or two, and then, anyway. But I think one of the things for us to think about, especially with ones like Racine on the Clean, is that they always operated at the highest level, meaning that they saw themselves as diplomats, as ambassadors, right? As walking on the highest platforms of the world stage with a mission of justice and reparation. And for them, that involved the artifacts, involved acknowledgement of the people stolen. And in fact, we traced one of the people even to New Zealand when I was there. Emir Ali was one of the young boys taken by Captain Speedy, and who also took Prince Salamayo, and then he found his way to India, and then from India he ended up in New Zealand. So in many ways, when we think about the history of the African enslavement and taken across the Atlantic, maybe one of the things that we don't quite realize is that history resonates on the African continent as well. So that in actual fact, there are stories of this kind of displacement of artifacts and peoples, consistently. So that in actual fact, we're not that far away from each other when it comes to that kind of issue of reparation. And it's important for us to think about that when we have these ideas about the diaspora, where the diaspora now, there's a kind of conception in the West that there's a new diaspora and an old diaspora. And the new diaspora, are the Africans who come to the West in their own lifetime or as young kids, right? And then there's the older diaspora, which is somehow entirely different. But, what we know is that there is a repetition in the colonial logic, which consistently puts up this logic of extraction of people, of ideas, of pirates, of goods. It's the continual logic of extraction. So we know that that the works that we do are part of the present, right? They're not something about just simply 400 years ago. They are the works that the ones are doing in St. Lucia is works for the world in the present. Yes, sir.
No. Why pause?
I want to know what Rasmay thinks about that.
The sharing is so important because, as you correctly say, many times we're having these banters, conversations among ourselves, especially among ourselves, and you have some groups among us would say, just forget about that. Let's be focused on this and singularly. And they're right. We ought to focus on the present and the future, but we cannot detach the past from it because it's so intricately linked. And unless we're really clear as to what that experience meant to us from the past, we cannot appropriate the present or the future for our benefit. Yes, and that is the problem, even when, and I hate to step into it, but you kind of introduced it, when we look at, the transitioning of the symbol of our oppression through a monarch or a monarchy. And you have, based on just relationships, people feel angst and feel pain by the passing, and that's a human experience. But when you think just in terms of the legacy that caused the breach in the African family and its association with that symbol of power and the person who represented it for 70 years, it makes you want to just do something else except cry or mourn the passing, which is a human reaction, I don't want to, many people are stepping into that space. It's not for me to step into necessarily, but I certainly have a strong opinion on it, especially in the context of the repairing of African legacies. So, but I thank you for that input, especially as relates to how our people, our leadership, our government, our teachers ought to reflect on and share, finding ways to share without the emotion or invoking the emotions, and to say, this is clearly what is necessary in order for us to stop this cycle of the atrocity and trauma that permeates our family and by extension the human family.
Yes, sir.
So
Yes,
that
sir.
is my own sense of it, but it's I draw from your own narrative and delivery of same because it's important to do so. And when we get people like yourself, my brother, esteemed and accomplished, representing and speaking on these topics, representing the space and speaking on these topics, we're very appreciative. I know you have the family in waiting, but and I know I only had you for half an hour. So, my beloved brother Robbie, perhaps you can give me a sealing comment and
Yes, sir.
to bring you forward again, perhaps with the rest of our colleagues from the University of the West Indies, from John Hopkins, and our extended Sosa Crew family, because we are going to be here for justice and healing. Brother Robbie.
Yes, sir. Good. Thanks. I mean, the thing that I would leave with just for this time is that the biggest lessons that I've learned and the biggest directions that I've been given and the biggest insights that I've had shared with me have been from ones who might not have accolades or titles, but in all other ways have built and developed those accolades and titles. So what consistently refreshes me and what consistently gives me a trust in the future is that we have so much resource to share with ones and ones, and those resources don't always come with the titles. I and I give ourselves the titles, right? You always what I mean, yeah. So that's all I would say, and I think we're blessed to have been given the opportunity to come to St. Lucia, to have the lasting memory, especially for the students of St. Lucia, and again, just to reiterate that, in the broader scheme of things, in the comparative scheme of things, St. Lucia is ones and ones in St. Lucia pursuing justice and healing are hitting above the belt, man. They're like, what I mean. One should never belittle, that attribution, right? It's world class. It is world class, and it's world leading. It's world leading. So I give thanks for that.
Rastafari, give thanks, my beloved brother.
Yeah.
And as you made mention, big shout out and gratitude to the elders of Rastafari, Lucia, the family, the youth, I Free, and the youth that are in the next generation coming forward, Ibed Negus and others who are coming forward, the young empresses who are coming forward, represent, standing on the shoulders of the elders who have passed and those who are present today. I want to say thank you for the work. We thank you for the sacrifice. Sir. And as we said, we are thanking you, Brother Robbie, for your contribution. But just as we're taking the break, I want to remind ones with this question asked by Morgan Heritage. Could you live through what the ancient Rasta man and Rasta woman lived through and remain faithful to whatever your faith is, the atrocities committed against them? Would you remain faithful? Yes, they have. And today they stand as victors for justice and healing. We're going to take a small break, Brother Robbie. On the other side of the break, we come forward again, recapping the mission of justice and healing St. Lucia. Blessed love. Give thanks. Majesty.
Bob and Dave were very proud to buy their mom a new energy-saving fridge with lots of smart settings. They remember the old ways of energy saving. Mom always said, "Close the fridge, you're wasting current." Smart advice then, smart advice now. Close the fridge, You're wasting current. Saving energy is what's smart.
This is the year to be counting solutions reminded. We must stop at this effect.
Captain Aaron Ras Iron Alexander. I'm encouraging all Rastafari and conscious people to participate and support the population and housing census, which is being done right now by the statistical department. And of course, it is good for us to know our numbers. So stand up and be counted. The numbers will help us strategically plan for the development and advancement of our community. So it's in our benefit for us to support the census. So it's good for us to know our numbers. And also it helps the government to better plan for the development of the country. So when the enumerators come around, be friendly, be nice. Sometimes a question you might feel a bit apprehensive or a little uneasy about the question. But at the end of the day, think of the greater good. Let us all stand and be counted. After all, we are both English and patois, and nous comptez Saint Lucie.
Nous comptez Saint Lucie, comptez Saint Lucie.
Yes, welcome again to the Justice and Healing Fora right here on Calabash TV St. Lucia. Also streaming on YouTube, Calabash TV. YouTube, it's Justice and Healing. And we just want to thank our beloved brother Robbie Shilliam, a professor of political science at the Johns Hopkins University. And an important thing Brother Robbie Shilliam said, he said, you know, many times the people who really matter don't carry no digits behind their names or in front of their names. They're doing the work consistently. And it is on their shoulders that today we stand, I stand, victorious in the victory of good over evil. One of the things I wanted to do on today's program is to do another recap, because we have spoken about some of the things that occurred during July into August for the Jaja and I, or the Justice and Healing Initiative. But I want to recap the mission of the Justice and Healing Initiative and the 28 days of delivery of the events pertaining to that initiative. So through the Cultural Center, the Ubuntu movement provided 28 days of African-centered spiritual rituals and cultural programs. And we're continuing to provide cultural activities for the whole family. That is occurring through our book club. We're doing storytellings with young children. We're having them look at maps of Africa, understanding where Africa is and its greatness, its vastness, as compared to the maps that they share with us. When you look at a map of Africa, you'd believe that Africa is smaller than the United States. When you could actually take the United States, take England, take France, take India and China, and put all of that into Africa and still have space left over. But they make Africa look so small. So we're sharing a lot with our young people, with our middle-aged people, with our elders. Book readings, music and history, and civic classes. We've gone across St. Lucia and given lectures on the issue of our Africanness, what emancipation means to us as Africans who were enslaved by cruelty and greed, and who now stand independent, and the roles that we must play to ensure that we accomplish true liberation of our minds as well as our bodies. At the Cultural Center, we actually created a documentary. We brought in a documentarian of note and repute, and he went around and he gathered stories and he created a marvelous masterpiece called Revelation, Revealing the Truth, Cases for Restorative Justice for Rastafari. But it was not to focus on Rastafari. It was to have Rastafari represent symbolically the injustices that have been part of our human experience, especially the Black experience, the African experience, and to say through our own liberation, our own activities, our initiatives as Rastafari have taken them, taken the bull, if you want, if you want to coin it, by the horn, and delivering for ourselves. the apparatus and the reality of our own liberation. And we have to continue doing that, but we're saying we symbolize that to our human family. And therefore, when we speak of restorative justice, it is not just about Rastafari, because Rastafari have never been about ourselves. We've always been about the human family and justice for the human family. So it is only consistent that we continue to do so. What I want to say also on the documentary is that so far, this documentary has been submitted to multiple independent film festivals and have received rave reviews. They've been accepted, at least 4 have been accepted, 1 in North America, several in Europe, and they've received rave reviews. People are really being enlightened. And we will have an entire program on that. We'll bring in not just the documentarian, but some of the contributors to the film. And we'll probably have another screening in St. Lucia as well as other places. So please look forward for that taking place very shortly. We also had an economic maritime initiative. We talked about what the Right Honorable Marcus Garvey did with the Black Star Liner as a maritime initiative over 100 years ago. We spoke about the challenges he faced, and we talked about how, through our own work, through our own initiatives, our own smarts, I can really engage a new thrust toward our own security through the establishment of a maritime business model that is of us, for us, and all about I&I, securing our food, our transportation, and the services that makes and enlightens our sovereignty. And we're going to do that. As we said over 15 months ago, 16 months ago, we were going to establish a space. We were going to have 13 months of planning and unpacking, sharing with the family. And we're going to establish the modalities through which we could have justice and healing. And we're going to have 28 days of rituals. We've accomplished all of that when most people, including some of our own family members, believed it was a daunting task. Happily, they stepped up to the plate and they hit that ball right out of the arena. We are very pleased because we've been very successful, and that success is in part, but in no small part, based on the initiatives of my beloved brother, and I say his name often, but I am unapologetic about this, the Right Honorable Priest Kailash, the Right Honorable Empress of Ethiopia, and the Rastafari family local St. Lucia, Bongo Vision, Ras Vision, the sisters, Mama Lavi, as I said before, Sister Malaysia, Empress Eve and Empress Violet, sisters who came forward and showed love and showed care and were involved. I want to make mention of names simply because we glorify our people when we do the right things. And justice is incomplete unless we say that which is just and fair. And so I want to thank also publicly a young brother, a European brother, but he came to Mount Kailash and he gave me service, independent service. Of course, he did it as part of his own contribution, yes, for his own justice and his healing. As he said when I met him first, he said, I want to change my life because it's been going on the wrong path. And I want to come to the mountains of Kailash for restorative processes. And he did. So I want to thank Brother John, young man, who came and gave service. And I pray that whatever he deserves, according to the will of goodness, if he remains good, that he will receive multifold. And I pray that his own righteousness will allow him to do right at all times, and all of us to do the right things according to our own God self and that which is divine within us. I want to thank Again, all the people who have been part of the initiative, who have made contributions. And I want to remind ones that our own work, including that of sharing healthy and holistic uses of herbs, sharing narratives on the pride of Blackness and the dignity of our ancestors, past, present, and certainly of ourselves in the future. We are the Ubuntu Center simply because our ancestors were before us and we are now before our own children. And we are just one linear family representing the good. So don't get distracted by those things that would take our goodness and small us up because it's a moment of emotion where we want to speak negatively and speak vile things against each other, not recognizing that we're only in a transient space. We're only passing through, and that there is a recompense, a reward for goodness, as well as a judgment for evil. So let us stay on the path. That was what we were about, representing justice and healing, but also the inevitable judgment on those who would seek to stand in the way of goodness and good deeds and good people. So family, this is what we did. We did this for 13 months. We organized, we planned, and then we executed. We brought the family in from multiple spaces, the Bahamas, Jamaica, Guadeloupe, Guyana, Trinidad and Tobago, North America, and once came in and participated. They added value and they demanded their own justice. And to date, so many people have been receiving their own healing, their own reward, just rewards. So this will continue. We also saw in very short order, immediately after we ended our initiative, the judgment coming to fore on those who are deserving of a judgment. And my family, that is important to understand, because these are not finite bookends. There's a continuum. We're in that continuum. And so what I want to do additionally is to share some breaking news with us. Some important breaking news. Because as part of our own restorative process, we have always sought to do right to ourselves, right to the family and those deserving of goodness. But even when you're doing these things, those who are wicked in intention and in fact will still seek to undermine, will persecute, will backbite, will stab in the back, will betray. And then in our case, in the case of the Ubuntu Rastafari Cultural Center, and this is brand new news that I'm sharing. Our center on Friday, September 23rd, both our center and my own office was broken into. Our Food of Seven Vital restaurant was broken into. Someone pried the doors off the side of our building. Don't know how they got in through the very high fences. Don't even know if they had to scale those fences. Don't know who it is and why. But they came in, they stole office equipment, including my own computer that has a lot of work in progress. A lot of important documents, projects that we're writing to engage young people and economic activities for young people in St. Lucia. Rehabilitation projects for sisters, young mothers, for young brothers who may have faced some criminal activities or have been touched by the penal system in St. Lucia. We wanted to see how we could help in rehabilitating these brothers. All that work is on my laptop. They stole it. I'm currently trying to see how Google can help me, because, you know, Google is one of them giants that saves documents. But I didn't always use Google. So it's a little daunting. Members of our staff are currently traumatized. You know, they're not quite fearful because we fear no one. We are Rastafari, not fear-I. Yes? But they're disappointed and discouraged, especially because they know our commitment is to help improve and enrich the lives of the St. Lucian family. I'm speaking something that just happened on Friday. So with the violation of our space, our privacy, our sense of security, and the removal of our important work in progress, those documents, it makes us at this point very unsure if we can continue in the location that we currently have. And you can see the image right on the screen. It's a beautiful building that thousands upon thousands, tens upon tens of thousands of dollars was pumped into revamping a lounge and creating a cultural space representing an African presence. And we brought in thousands of dollars worth of books and established initiatives that were to serve the family. But at this point, the violation itself has disrupted our sense of security. But there's a chant we're having as Rastafari people. We said it all works together for I and I good. Because our resolve and commitment to share in and improve the educational mission that we started, the spiritual mission that we started, the history that we're teaching, the culture that we represent and are sharing, our commitment remains undaunted, unchanged, and complete in our resolve. That's who we are. We are Rastafari, leaders to be respected. So even if you come with a level of disrespect, we're not daunted by what you come with. Even if you come and you violate the space, we call you a coward because you came at night. You came within the shadows like a ghost and an evil spirit. And so let me tell you now, whomsoever you are, I bind you with the power of the Trinity. Karamari, Haile Selassie the first. And I'll tell you this, your justice and your judgment is sure, as I am sure I am, Past Dr. Wayne A. Rose. So we're not shifting from St. Lucia. The space is violated, and perhaps after 13 months of work there, it is now complete. So perhaps we could say it is finished, at least in that space. The redemption that we represent, the redemption that we came with, the justice that we brought is now finished, perhaps for that space. But now we escalate. We move to the higher level because that's who we are, Rastafari, the higher level. So we will escalate and we will move up. Perhaps we'll get one of those buildings that we need to represent the optics of Rastafari and the cleanliness of Rastafari. Because we see the zeal in the people, especially the young people of St. Lucia, to learn. We went into the primary, the secondary, and high schools of St. Lucia, and we saw the longing for the knowledge. And those who came in our center, we saw them. They sat with us when we did our Exonerate Marcus Garvey campaign. They performed with us, and they said this is what they needed. We're not going anywhere. We're undaunted. So we want ones to know that yes, our momentum has been obstructed. The incident has caused some dis-ease in our energy, but it has also sharpened our resolve to continue the work of justice and healing, and to continue that work in St. Lucia and around Castries. And perhaps we'll go into other communities who will open the doors for us, because the doors are open wide. Because we brought the will of goodness with us, and that will remains with us even as we continue. So what I'm saying to the St. Lucian family is, yes, as breaking news, we share it. Our space was violated. But equally important is that we're going to launch the next phase of our initiative publicly, in the face of those who would want to undermine us, and to say, Justice and Healing 2023 is on its way. Look forward to it, because in that initiative, we're going to bring people, as we promised last year, that we were going to bring people from all over. We're going to target Europe, and we're going to target the Caribbean, and we're going to target the Americas, and we're going to invite African righteous people, not one group or two, but as many who are willing to come. We are going to invite you in to come to Mount Kailash, to come to St. Lucia, to come and assist in adding value to justice and healing, not just for St. Lucians, not just for yourselves, but as African righteous people must come together, as Kadamari Haile Selassie I says. If we do not come together, the world cannot come together. So we take this as an important next step. Having now completed proof of concept by doing the tremendous work that we did. You saw Brother Robbie Shilliam earlier. Last Strong, you saw Brother Dr. Jelani Naya. You saw Sister Kalia Set. You saw Honorable Priest Kailash, Empress Ethiopia. You saw a multiplicity of good energies who are ready to work for the causes of justice, for the causes of healing. And they want to do that work in St. Lucia, because this is the place that we're called to in this time. And it's not to say other spaces are not important and that work will not be done there. But what we expect to happen and will happen is that there will be a multiple effect, a domino effect, where those who are encumbered by whatever they're encumbered, whether they're those in government and in leadership and civil societies in Jamaica and whatever other spaces where those encumbrances stops them from acting, they will then have the example of St. Lucia and its dynamic leadership. And people say, how can you do that and say that so boldly? Well, I'm saying it on the authority of goodness, because I know in the people and the leadership of St. Lucia, there is goodness. But ones have to release that goodness into the world through actions, deliberate actions. So I'm calling on those leaders who have already shown their capacity to do the right things, their willingness to do the right things. I'm calling on them to continue doing those right things, not for us, Wayne, but for the vision of a liberated people, for the vision of justice for those liberated people, the vision of ensuring that the economics and the social structures and the political structures work in the interest of the people. That is what we're calling on. Because in that justice, what we will find is healing among ourselves, individually, collectively, nationally, regionally, and by asserting that will bring forward a global healing. How then befitting it is that St. Lucia is called the Helen of the West, has the double pitons, has a driving volcano with the energy of heat, fire, to restore, to purge, to purify. We will be in St. Lucia. We're doing this work in St. Lucia. I know I'm talking to the choir, but I have to talk. And what I want to position ones to do next strong when we come on, 7 days from today, I'm going to open up the line so we can have some conversations about what it is that we intend to do, what it is we already are planning, where we are in those plans, and how you can play your role, how you can add value. And generally, I'd say I and I, but you know what I'm speaking of, because I don't want you to misunderstand that. So I want I, the I, and I, in our conversations next week to talk about how you and I and I add value so that 13 months or just about September of next year, exactly 13 months after the ending of our Justice and Healing Initiative 2022, we will have the grand launch of the Justice and Healing Initiative 2023 with our economic structures right and in progress, with the family coming from all over as African righteous people, whether they're Christian, Muslims, Jews, Gentiles, and certainly with Rastafari in the vessel, it will be all good. Because as I and I chant, and this is a chant, Honorable Priest Kailash, I developed this chant right there at the cottage you allowed, gracefully allowed I and I to have first, as the first Secretariat residential office, I developed the chant that says, it all works together for I and I good. Yes? Congo man, it all works together. Yes, it all works together. Yes, it all works together for I and I good. So whatever you see and whatever your narrative is, I pray that you understand that it is all good. Because Ras Wayne says it's all I vine. Other people say divine. But we're not dividing anything. We're bringing things within the unity, the oneness, the singularity of goodness. So it's all good. It works together for our good. Because what you will see, and these are the words I speak now, but it will manifest as night follows day. We will escalate our work. We'll bring more people. And we will ensure that St. Lucia stands on the map, as it already is. Because we have people all over the world now talking about St. Lucia and what is happening there. But the narrative will be sharper. It will be more profound. It will have depths that ones have not seen before. Because our intention is not to be normal and usual. Our intention is to be sovereign and dignified with our sovereignty, standing on our own ethos. And as people decided over 2 years ago to change the world, to lock the world down, and have us living in fear, we're going to change our own world by declaring the goodness we seek economically, socially, spiritually, so that when our family look back 50, 100, 200 years from today, they will see and recognize the pivotal moment that is represented in our Justice and Healing Initiative. I then leave you with this, my family. Ubuntu, I am, because you are. One perfect love, Rastafari. Give thanks. More justice and healing. Blessed love.